I'm Leah Goldstein, and this is the OhioRAAM Show.
And thank you, Leah Goldstein, for that introduction. We appreciate that. We hope your new book's going well. No limits. And if people are interested in buying your book, they can go to the previous show, show number 108 on the OhioRAAMshow.com. And there'll be a link there where you can go to your webpage and buy your book. And we're coming today from Jerry's Restaurant in Englewood, Ohio, and we'll tell you why in a little bit. But this is Sasha. Hi, Sasha.
Hello.
How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Sasha brought me my coffee. As you people watch the show know, I always have to have. We appreciate that. And you're a part of a 3-person team here, aren't you?
Yes.
And your mother and father are the owners and operators of this restaurant.
Yes, they are.
And it's a great place. We'll talk more about that later. But we want to welcome all of you to the show. We want to say happy holidays to all of our friends around the world. And we hope you're having a great holiday season as we get on with the show. Now, why we're in Jerry's Restaurant, and what's the connection between it and the Race Across America? Well, I can look right out through that window there, and I can see the very first time station I was ever at. Back in the 80s, the Race Across America came right up the national road, old US 40. It didn't worry about going through cities or anything like that. And although I'd been involved with the Race Across America in some ways before that, and my wife and I had met Sue and Lon before that, it was over there, I can see it from here, where I first got hooked on the Race Across America. And my wife and I were talking about this. She remembers it. Sonia and I were on our tandem, and we escorted Susan Nortolangelo through town. She went on to win the Race Across America that year, and we were very, very careful that we didn't violate any rules that would get her fined. And since we're talking about rules and fines, today's show is about rules and fines on the Race Across America, and we have on the show with us Jim Harms, who is the Director of Officials for the Race Across America. I met up with Jim over in Dublin, Ohio, when he was officiating for the OhioRAAM Challenge. And even though OhioRAAM Challenge sounds like OhioRAAM Show, I must always say, so that Fred Bothling doesn't get upset with me, there's really no connection other than the fact that we both love the sport. So let's go and visit with Jim Harms in Dublin, Ohio. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That wasn't bad, was it?
No.
Okay. And we're here in Dublin, Ohio on a cold, blustery day, getting ready for the OhioRAAM Challenge. And I have to say, we're here with Jim Harms, who's the chief official for the Race Across America. And because the OhioRAAM Show has a similar name, just let me be clear, we're not connected officially in any way, and the Bothlings over here are always happy that I disavow any relationship with them whatsoever. But we're here with Jim Harms. How are you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing great. It's a little bit different from 100-degree weather to 56-degree weather.
So you live in
Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson, Arizona, and you come up here. Well, last year we had a real nice year.
Yes, it was. Hence, I wore shorts and everything else. This year, I didn't bring no cold weather gear except for what I have on, my jacket.
Well, I sent you a message, but I think you're already in the airport and probably packed. That says bring your rain gear. Yeah, but here we are.
Here we are. We'll do it.
Well, James, we were planning on doing this back last, was it winter or spring sometime, and then you had a little mishap at your house. Tell us about what happened there.
A little mishap. We had Niagara Falls in our house in Tucson, Arizona. I come home and I had an inch and a half water downstairs, an inch of water upstairs, ceilings collapsing, waterfall out the backyard. So, long story short, a water line from the wall to the commode and ran for 6-7 hours, 1,700 gallons later.
It doesn't take long, does it?
No, you think water's being so soft, but it can be quite destructive.
Yeah, well, we had a pipe break a number of years ago. It wasn't nothing like you had, but it just seems to get everywhere.
That's an understatement. 3 months later in a hotel, we finally got back into a new old house renovated, so it's real nice, though.
Well, from the pictures, it looks like you just kind of stripped everything to the bone, didn't you?
What we had to, downstairs had to go out to frame because it was that bad in all the walls. So we took the time to do some major upgrades and new windows and stuff like that. So it all worked out for the positive.
So you essentially got a new house.
Yes, at the insurance dime, with the exception of the upgrades that I did that wasn't the insurance.
Well, I saw some of the pictures and what you had to go through. And, you know, from my experience, it's amazing what these people can do that deal with mold and what have you. They get rid of it, don't they?
Yes, it did. They found a little small spot by our heat pump, but other than that, it was excavated and taken care of, so that was good to know.
Well, I'm glad that all turned out okay for you. And, Jim, we have another common interest besides the Race Across America and ultra cycling, and that's I know that you love dogs.
Dogs are my passion. Those are our kids.
Yeah. And you have a dog named, is it Molly?
Loki.
Loki. Yeah. I don't know why I thought it was Molly. Ryan Palermo with Team Phenomenal Hope. Her dog is Molly. I get our RAAM family dogs mixed up sometimes.
Yeah. He's really nice. He's a good boy. English Springer Spaniel, full bred. So that's my boy. He's attached to my hip.
Well, last year you sent me a little clip for our holiday show. Was that Loki?
Yes, that was.
Okay, good. Jim, you're the chief official. Kind of tell me what it is an official does and how they go about doing it.
Very carefully. No, it's a lot of fun. We're out there for the most part to ensure everybody's being safe, the integrity of the race, and to help out with any road conditions that might warrant a reroutes or anything like that.
And how many officials does it take to cover a race like America? Well, what you have and what you'd like to have?
Ideally, if we're talking about Race Across America, the RAAM event in June, ideally it'd be nice to have 15 to 20 full course vehicles going across from Oceanside to Annapolis, 10 vehicles for our Race Across the West, and then our regionals. It wouldn't be possible to cover those other areas without those guys. So another 10 to 15-ish regional officials out there.
So explain the difference between the coast to coast and what the regionals do.
Okay, coast to coast, simple. That's self-explanatory. Yeah. But the regionals, what they do is, for instance, I'll use one of my Ohio regionals, Jamie Narragon. Yeah. She covers basically the Ohio area from one portion, usually like Effingham, Illinois, up to maybe Athens or Blanchester. And so she covers that area back and forth, helping out where we don't have our full course in that area at that point. We have somebody up here.
Now, I've recommended, Jim, to our fans of the Race Across America that they ought to do something that baseball fans do, football fans do. They get to know the rules. And I think it's a good idea for those of you who follow the race just to know the rules.
That's very important. The rules are quite simple. They could actually, if we were to do it, we could do it all the rules on one page. It's mostly common sense. Everybody has to follow all the vehicular motor laws, and then we do have race-specific rules, where it comes to like no drafting, no pacing each other, that type stuff. But the rules are there for a reason. There are 30, 40 pages. We're working on bringing those down, but it's just because everybody likes to push the envelope, and that thus creates us to have to add another rule.
As in everything, almost every rule you see is there that has a history behind it.
Yes, I've been around RAAM since 2008, I believe it is. And from my experience, every rule has a reason. The most recent is the Anders Tesgard, unfortunately, with advancing on the course with no support at dusk, basically.
Yeah, and we figured out just by putting two and two together, from the data we could see at our time stations, that's probably what had happened. And that's a very tragic event. Last word I had that he really hadn't shown any improvement. I don't know. Have you heard any late on that?
I've been following him on his Facebook page, and I haven't really seen any posts since August 25th, so I can't say any more than that. I agree with you. That's basically what they were saying there as well. I do want to say on behalf of RAAM and myself and the officials is that we wish the family well and continuing recovery of Anders. He is a great person, great athlete, and a great promoter for the race.
And we had him on the OhioRAAM show a couple of different times, actually, and he was always gracious to come on. He's from Denmark, by the way, for those of you who may not know it, and is back home in Denmark now in some kind of health facility. Well, I know one rule that used to be in the rule book, Jim, and I notice it's missing. And there was a rule once upon a time that that crews were not allowed to dance nude alongside the road. You remember seeing that in the rule book?
Yes, I do, and I don't know why. I brought that up this year, and I believe it will be coming back.
Well, I think it should, and I suspect maybe that rule has a history.
The history, yes, I'm not sure about, but like you alluded to earlier, everything has a reason, and I don't know if I really want to know the reason of that one.
Yeah, that's true. So, and now you have a penalty system. Tell us about how that works, and give the people a general outline of what penalties are, how you assess them, how you collect on them.
Okay, first and foremost, the officials aren't out there to assess penalties. We're not cops. We try to be firm, fair, and friendly is our motto. But there has to be some sort of penalty awardance to people who disobey or have been just told over and over and over again not to do certain things. Prime example are the 5 feet off the road. Okay, that's a standard rule. Whenever a support vehicle stops, they must park 5 feet to the right of the fog line or the edge of the roadway due to safety concerns, passing traffic and car doors opening that are parked off the side of the road. The way the penalty system works is the first penalty is a 15-minute. The second penalty for the same infraction is a 15-minute, or second penalty period is a 15-minute. Then it goes to 30, 45, then an hour. You're allowed up to 6 penalties total before you're disqualified. Okay, what we tend to do is on day one, through the first day of the race, through the night, is educate the riders and teams and try not to issue any penalties. It's a matter of education. We have 20 plus different countries plus the U.S. There's language barriers, there's law barriers and understanding. So that's why we try to educate the first basically 24 to 36 hours into the race before we start issuing penalties. With that said, though, if there's penalties that are continuance on that day one that are of major safety concerns and everything else, after the first, maybe the second one, they're going to get a written warning, and they may end up getting a penalty that first day.
And you have penalty boxes along the way, just like hockey.
Yes, we have one in Durango, the end of RAAM. Okay, so whatever penalties you acquire between Oceanside and Durango, Colorado, you must serve those penalties at that spot, whatever that time frame. Nobody is allowed to advance on the course. Okay, and then from that point to Mount Airy, Maryland. Yeah, Mount Airy, Maryland. Any penalties you acquire during that time frame, you are required to assess them there as well. Now, just because those are the 2 penalty boxes doesn't mean it ends there either. You still can get penalties from Mount Airy into the finish line for doing some bonehead, what I want to say, just doing
being
something
stupid.
wrong. Yeah, that's it. Yes.
And typically, because the racers are spread out so far, it's been my observation that penalties rarely determine the winner of a race. Although there's been some notable and notorious, I should say, cases where persons have had this, or are supposed to have sit in the penalty box while their competitor goes on by.
Yes, and I understand the heat of the race and the racers and the crew and everything else, but if you get penalties the first 1,000, 2,000, or first 1,000 miles or less, you have lots of roadway to make up that time frame. Spending a little less time when you stop for support, your sleep breaks, all these areas where you can cut back and make up times. It's very doable to earn back an hour worth of penalties.
It seems to me over the last several years that I've noticed fewer penalties being handed out. Is that, or is that just an observation that may not have any basis in fact?
Yes and no. There's some areas, like this past year, there were warnings that should have been penalties and penalties that should have been warnings. So I actually am tracking all that these days now to see so I can better educate the officials and then use that data as well for the RAAM seminars and the crew chief and rider meetings as well.
By the time the teams start in Oceanside, which is 4 days later than the solo riders may be in eastern Colorado, maybe western Kansas by then. So that's 1,000 miles, 1,200 miles spread out, and as the race goes on, it gets more spread out. So you've got a lot of territory to cover with just a very few officials. How do you manage that?
Having more officials, it makes it a little daunting at times, especially when you get into the plains and where we are lacking in our regional officials as well. Some of the racers might not see an official for a couple of days, so it makes it real hard, and that's what we're trying to correct, is bringing on more officials, more regionals, to help the spread of that gap.
Working on the time stations I had over the years, I've gotten to know quite a few of the officials. I remember, and I can't remember their names, the two brothers from Austria. Are they still with us?
Carl and Hans Schletter, they were here this year, as a matter of fact. They come down every couple of years. They're out of Germany, Austria actually, so.
And Sheila Foraker, I don't think she works for you anymore, does she?
No, with her perimeter bicycling and all the events she puts on through the year back in Tucson, El Tour de Tucson and stuff, she's just jam-packed there from January 1st to December 31st.
And I believe before you took over, the Rourkes, were the chief official?
Mike and Cindy Rourke. They are helping out. They did Raw this year. Great couple there. Great knowledge. They've been with us for like 20 some odd years. So a vast of knowledge. So it's great to have that kind of knowledge on board.
How long have you been the chief official?
I have been the director of officials for getting ready to go into my fourth year.
Fourth year.
Time flies.
Okay, now you say you'd like to have more officials, and I guess you're saying you could use nationwide and regional both.
Correct.
All right, let's say I want to be an official, and I will tell you right off, Jim, if it weren't for some challenges life has presented me physically, I'd be just tickled to death to do this. But that's not going to happen. But let's say I want to become an official. How would I go about doing that?
There's a couple of ways. You could go onto the RAAM's website and find the Director of Officials link there, or you could just email me directly, jimharms@racecrossamerica.org, and I will get back with you. And then we would converse over the phone and then figure out what it is exactly, what capacity you want to officiate, and then we would go from there. If it was like a full course and you're in an area of one of our challenge series, which we're at this weekend, it's a great opportunity to kind of get your tip the toes, if I may, and test the waters there.
And on the screen now, you should see a link to Jim's email address, and also just below the video, if you're watching on the OhioRAAMshow.com website, you'll see a link. Just click on it and it'll send you right to Jim's email if you are interested. So, okay, you've interviewed me on the telephone. Now, what's next? What kind of training, orientation would I be expecting?
Okay, right now there's really no formalized officials training. I'm working on that as well to hopefully maybe roll out in 2016 a WebEx type training, but it's really more of common sense, knowing the rules, and being firm and friendly. Then you have, like I mentioned, the RAAM Challenge series where we can get you out, if you're in the area, we can get you out and get your feet wet that way. The RAAM Challenge series is basically the same thing, just up to 400 miles out that we work over the weekend. So same rules, same idea, same requirements for the vehicles and racers as RAAM. So it's just a mini RAAM.
Okay, now, so I'm a regional official. What expectations do you have of me? Say I'm covering a stretch of Kansas where you need people. What expectations do you have of me?
Okay, well, you supply us with the dates that you're available, and then what we expect is the dates and locations. So from time station to time station is what we look for. Usually at least 2 or 3 time stations, preferably if you can do up to 3 to 4, maybe 5. That's very helpful due to the spread of the officials on the course. And then from that point, basically all your instructions come from race headquarters. Kim down there in Tucson, or Boulder rather, who runs the placement of the officials. So it may require you to sit for multiple hours. It may require you to backtrack on the course. It just depends on what's happening and who is the closest official.
Okay, and how much sleep will I get?
Yes. It varies. It just depends on the person and how they go. Prime example, me. I usually go down for about 4, maybe 5 hours a night when I go down to sleep, because you can catch up to the field. You're always in the field, and get back up to the placement where you want to be in a reasonable amount of time. There's times that I've only gotten 2 or 3 hours. It really depends on what's going on. But ultimately, how are you doing on the road as an official? Are you starting to nod off at the wheel? It's time for you to pull over and go down for a break.
Okay, well, that gives us a good handle. Now, we're here for the OhioRAAM Challenge, a 200-mile and 400-mile. How many officials are you going to have for this?
I have four officials that'll be out on the courses, 2 on the 2 on the 400, and then they'll have myself and Fred, who will go out in the beginning for probably the first 100 miles where everybody's still together and help out in that congested area, and then we'll play it by ear, see what's going on with the field.
Well, that's been very helpful. As I said, I had you on the radar for a while to do this, and then some water interfered with with your life. But this has been very good, and we appreciate this a whole lot, Jim. Good luck out there, and don't be too mean.
Oh, never. I don't bite, I just nibble, and I'll smile while I'm nibbling, so you may not even know it. But if you're interested, again, please contact me, Jim Harms at racecrossamerica.org.
And again, that you'll see that on the screen or in the link right below if you're watching this on YouTube or one of the several sites that embed the show. You'd have to go to OhioRAAMshow.com and there'll be a direct link there. But otherwise, just type that name in and we'll get you. And Jim, it's getting breezier out there.
It is. It's not hot air, so it's not me.
Well, it hasn't. They were talking rain today, but it hadn't rained yet.
No, last I heard was early in the morning, about 5 o'clock when the race is supposed to start, like it was in Minnesota. So we'll see. It'll be interesting, and it'll be fun.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Jim, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
And hopefully maybe we'll find you an official or two.
That would be great.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Lee. Have a great one.
Well, thanks, Jim Harms. We really appreciate what you do and what all the officials do and all the sleep you lose, but we also envy all the fun you have being officials on the Race Across America. And since we recorded the show, Jim has put out a call for officials for the Texas RAAM Challenge, which is earlier next year. And if you go to the website I mentioned, you can sign up to help there. He needs several officials. If anybody can help in Kansas, that's greatly appreciated as well. And of course, he could use help all across the United States. And we hope that you'll think about being an official. So we're here again in Jerry's restaurant, and I have with me, and your name is?
Jerry.
Jerry, okay. And your husband's name is?
Jerry.
Jerry. And how did you happen to come up with the name for Jerry's restaurant?
Well,
I guess that's self-explanatory. We appreciate you hosting us here today, and we want to thank everyone during this past year. This is the last show of 2015. There won't be another show till January the 7th, when we're going to have Juliana Buehring on from Germany. Juliana holds the around-the-world cycling record for women, and she's going to be in the Race Across America in 2016. Quite a remarkable woman, and I know you won't want to miss that show. We appreciate everyone who gives us a share on the social media. We have been growing in followers over the last 2 months in a rather remarkable way, and that's all because of you people who give us shares and give us likes on the social media. Because when you do that, that makes the show better known. And of course, having the show better known is really a way of letting us know that ultracycling is a great sport, very much unheard of, but you're helping that happen when you share this show. So have a great holiday season. We'll see you all next year, and goodbye. Okay, well, thank you for being with us. And do you suppose Sasha could round up a piece of that cherry pie for me?
absolutely.
Okay, Sasha, bring me the cherry pie. I'm having a mental lapse. I'll cut this out.
That's all right.
This it happens to me more and more.
It's a CRS moment, as
Yes,
I call it.
yeah.
You can't remember stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.